Picture a boy, all of 9 years old, fending for himself in an unheated flat in rural France for 2 years. This isn't a tale from a Dickens novel, this happened in the 21st century. In the small village of Nersac, on the outskirts of Angoulême in the Charente region, a young boy's plight has sent shockwaves across the nation. It's a chilling reminder of the breakdown of traditional communities, even in the most rural of areas. This young lad, whose name we won't mention, found himself abandoned by his mother in a cold council flat. It was 2020, and his mother had chosen to move in with a new partner, just 3 miles away. Her visits to her son became occasional, her nurturing reduced to delivering food on her scooter. The boy's father, living in another town, was left out of the picture. While his mother was away, the boy was left to his own devices. His diet consisted of biscuits, tinned food, and whatever he could scrounge from neighbors, including tomatoes he'd stolen from a nearby balcony. With no hot water, electricity, or heating, he found solace in the warmth of a sleeping bag and blankets. The community around him was oblivious to his desperate situation. The boy was attending school, appearing normal, clean, and earning good grades. His mother, when confronted by concerned neighbors, insisted she was taking care of her son and told them to mind their own business. The mayor of Nersac, Barbara Couturier, expressed her shock, stating the boy appeared so normal that no one suspected his situation was desperate. He was polite, a good pupil, always clean, and smiling. Nothing suggested he was abandoned, but the unimaginable was unveiled when neighbors finally approached the police. The boy was taken into care, and the mother was brought to justice. His mother, a 39-year-old woman, was sentenced last week to a 6-month prison term, served at her residence with an electronic bracelet, for abandoning and endangering a minor. For 2 years, the boy lived alone, surviving on biscuits, tinned food, and food scavenged from neighbors. He inhabited an unheated flat in Nersac, a village on the outskirts of Angoulême, in the Charente region of southwestern France. At only 9 years old, he was left to fend for himself in a world that was far too harsh and unyielding for a child his age. Every day was a struggle for survival. With no hot water, he was unable to wash himself properly. The flat lacked electricity, plunging him into darkness as soon as the sun set. And without heating, the cold winters of southwestern France were a brutal ordeal. He spent his time wrapped in a sleeping bag and blankets, his only defense against the biting cold. Despite these dire circumstances, the boy showed an admirable determination to maintain a semblance of normalcy. He attended school, just like any other child of his age. His appearance gave no hint of the desolation he faced at home. He was always clean, always polite. His grades were good, a testament to his resilience and the strength of his spirit. His situation was hidden behind a facade of normalcy so convincing that even those who interacted with him daily were fooled. His mother had convinced the neighbors that she was taking care of him, warding off any suspicion. This was a child who, despite all odds, managed to keep his plight hidden from the world, maintaining an outward appearance of normalcy while living a life of unimaginable hardship. But at home, alone, the reality was starkly different. The flat was his entire world, a world that was cold, dark, and lonely. He was a child, yet he was forced to bear burdens far beyond his years, to navigate a life that no child should ever have to experience. The boy spent his time wrapped up in a sleeping bag and blankets, hiding his desperate situation behind a facade of normalcy. His story is a stark reminder of the hidden struggles that may lie behind the most ordinary facades, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, and a call to action for all of us to be more vigilant and caring towards those around us. Neighbors voiced concern to the mother, who told them she was caring for her son and to stay out of her business. This was the mother's defense, her adamant denial of any neglect. She insisted that she was taking care of her son, that she was providing for him, despite her rare appearances at the flat where her child was left to fend for himself. The mother, a woman of 39 years, had found a new partner and moved 3 miles away, leaving her 9-year-old son in an unheated, dilapidated council flat. Her visits were sporadic, her presence reduced to fleeting moments of bringing food on her scooter. There was a shocking disconnect between her claims and the reality her son faced. Her insistence that she was fulfilling her duties as a mother was met with hard evidence to the contrary. The police, in their investigation, discovered mobile data that painted a starkly different picture. The data showed the mother's phone was hardly ever at the flat. This was the cold, harsh truth, a digital footprint that couldn't be argued with. The mother's claims of caring for her son were shattered by this revealing evidence. Her words of assurance to concerned neighbors, her insistence in court, all contradicted by the silent testimony of her mobile data. Yet, even in the face of undeniable evidence, the mother remained steadfast in her denial. She clung onto her narrative, refusing to acknowledge her blatant neglect. In the courtroom, she stood firm, insisting on her version of the story, a story that was falling apart under the weight of the evidence against her. In the end, her final words in court echoed with a chilling nonchalance. "I'm not a doting mother, but he's still my son." This was her parting shot, a statement that left more questions than answers. It was a declaration that underscored the tragic reality of a boy left alone for 2 years, a stark reminder of a mother's denial that led to unimaginable consequences. The mother's trial unveiled the shocking and sad truth about the boy's living conditions. The courtroom was filled with a palpable tension as the prosecutor, Anne Medioni, began to detail the unimaginable circumstances that the boy had to endure. "The child had no way even to wash with hot water," she said, her voice echoing the collective disbelief of those present. As the trial progressed, the extent of the mother's neglect became increasingly clear. Despite her insistence that the boy had lived with her, mobile data painted a different picture. It showed that her phone had hardly been at the flat where the boy resided. In a courtroom filled with hard faces and incredulous stares, the mother's feeble defense stood out starkly against the chilling evidence presented. "I'm not a doting mother, but he's still my son," she told the court, a statement that did little to sway the mounting sentiment against her. In the end, the mother's neglect was deemed too severe to be ignored. The judge, appalled by the mother's disregard for her son's welfare, sentenced her to a 6-month prison term, to be served at her residence with an electronic bracelet. This sentence, however, was more than just a punishment. It was a reflection of a society that refused to turn a blind eye to a child's suffering. But the court's intervention didn't end with the sentence. Recognizing the deep-seated issues that had led to such neglect, the judge ordered the mother to undergo psychiatric counseling. This was not just about retribution, but also about rehabilitation, a chance for the mother to confront her actions and their devastating consequences. As the courtroom emptied, the impact of the trial lingered. The shocking revelations had stirred a sense of collective guilt, and yet, there was also a sense of relief. The boy, who had suffered so much, was finally free from his harrowing past. The mother was sentenced to 6 months of home confinement, with a mandate to undergo psychiatric counseling. This marked the end of a distressing chapter in the boy's life, but it also marked the beginning of a new journey, one filled with hope and the promise of a better future. After years of living alone, the boy was taken into care and is now reported to be settled with a foster family. This marked the beginning of a new chapter. From surviving in a cold, unheated flat to finding comfort in a warm, loving home, the boy's life took a turn that he perhaps never dared to dream of. In his new home, there was no shortage of warmth, both from the central heating and from the hearts of his foster family. He was no longer alone, no longer left to fend for himself. The days of scavenging for food and wrapping himself in layers to fight the cold were now in the past. He now had regular meals, a warm bed to sleep in, and a supporting family around him. This new environment brought about a significant change in the boy's life. He began to experience what normal childhood should be like. Instead of spending lonely nights in a cold flat, he now had a family to come home to, a table to share meals at, and a warm bed to sleep in. He was no longer the boy who ate his meals alone and took the bus alone. In his foster family, he found a sense of belonging he had been deprived of for so long. He found people who cared for his well-being, who were interested in his day at school, who were there to guide and support him. This was a stark contrast to the years he spent alone, fending for himself in the cold flat. Despite the harsh experiences of his past, the boy showed immense strength and resilience. His adjustment to this new, healthier environment was remarkable. He continued to excel in school, maintaining his good grades and polite demeanor. The boy, who once lived a life of solitude and neglect, was now thriving in a loving, caring environment. His new life is a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure, adapt, and thrive. It's a story of resilience and the power of a loving, supportive environment. From a cold, unheated flat to a warm, loving home, the boy has found a new lease on life. He has risen from the ashes of his past, and now he stands tall, ready to face the world with renewed hope and strength. The neighbors, once ignorant of the boy's plight, now grapple with feelings of guilt. The shocking revelation of the boy's circumstances left them haunted, their minds riddled with questions of what if and if only. They saw the boy, they interacted with him, but the truth of his situation was hidden behind the veil of normalcy. Guilt, a gnawing sense of remorse, seeped into the hearts of those who lived just doors away. They had seen the boy alone, but they had not seen his loneliness. They had seen his solitude, but they had not seen his abandonment. His mother's occasional visits, the boy's clean appearance, his good grades at school, these were the masks that hid the grim reality from the world. In the aftermath, the community was forced to confront the anonymity of modern life. In a time gone by, the village would have been a safety net, a collective guardian for every child. It's not like that anymore, lamented a resident of Nursak. Villages, communities, families, these structures that once offered support and care have been eroded in the face of modernity. The regret is palpable, but regret alone cannot undo the past. Instead, it serves as a bitter lesson for the present and a stern warning for the future. This regret has sparked a resolve to be more vigilant, to be more involved, to ensure that no child slips through the cracks again. This tragic case has underscored the dire need for community, for shared responsibility, for collective care. It has shown that the facade of normalcy can hide unspeakable suffering, that silence can be a cry for help, and that indifference can be a form of cruelty. In the words of a Nursak resident, when there was a family and a village around the family, if the mother neglected the child, it didn't matter too much, because the rest of the family and the whole village took care of the child. It's not like that anymore. A 9-year-old boy's ordeal has left a community in shock, and a nation asking questions. As we wrap up this disheartening narrative, it's important to reflect on the boy's resilience and his mother's negligence, a juxtaposition that has rattled the peace of Nursak, a village on the outskirts of Angoulême in the Charente region. This young boy, whose identity remains protected, endured 2 years of solitude in an unheated council flat, relying on biscuits, canned food, and whatever he could scrounge from neighbors. Despite the odds stacked against him, he managed to attend school, and even excel in his studies, all while hiding the grim reality of his home life. His mother, sentenced to a 6-month home confinement with an electronic bracelet, stands as a chilling reminder of the depth of human indifference. Her insistence at the trial that her son lived with her was quickly debunked by police who presented mobile data showing her absence from the boy's residence. Ordered to undergo psychiatric counseling, she represents a disturbing example of parental neglect and abandonment. But this story extends far beyond the confines of one family's tragedy. It serves as a stark reminder of the disintegration of community support systems, even in rural areas. The boy's plight underlines the extent to which old communities have broken down and the devastating consequences of this societal shift. In a time where families were surrounded by a supportive village, neglectful parents could be offset by the care of others. But, in our modern era where anonymity often prevails over communal ties, the safeguarding of children can falter, as it tragically did in this case. The guilt expressed by the neighbors reflects a shared sense of responsibility that went unfulfilled, a sobering realization that echoes across the nation. Yet, amidst the gloom, there is a glimmer of hope. The boy, now settled with a foster family, has a chance at a fresh start. His story serves as a wake-up call, a reminder of the importance of vigilance and community. It is a call to action for us all to look out for one another, to pay attention to the signs of neglect and abuse, and to not hesitate in raising the alarm when a child's well-being is at stake. This narrative, as heartbreaking as it is a stark reminder of the resilience of the human spirit, of a young boy's determination to survive in the face of adversity, and the power of a community to reflect, learn, and change. The story from Nursak is a lesson, a call to action, and a plea for compassion and vigilance. It is a reminder that every child deserves care, love, and a safe home. It is a call to rebuild the lost village, the lost community that once ensured the safety and well-being of every child. As we reflect on this heartbreaking tale, we are reminded of the importance of community, vigilance, and the responsibility we all share in safeguarding the well-being of our children.